Good afternoon. Thanks. Furlough, it's Friday again. It's Friday. I was just trying to figure out what date it is. I've heard dates lose it a bit, don't they? 18th. 19th. Yeah, it's Friday the 19th of June. Wow, we're already over halfway. And I think isn't the longest day coming up next week, which seems a bit weird. But anyway, here we are again. And I am very pleased to have Jacquie here as well. Which actually is more her program. I just turn up and say hello, really, because she takes over, thankfully. So, Jacquie, you were saying there's not a lot of change at the moment, but there are some significant moves, I think.
Yeah, it's been a fairly quiet week, actually. Things are going round and round in circles a bit at the moment. Nothing much has been announced this week. The announcements that came out after last Friday's webinar were, as I say, not particularly significant. There's been a couple of tweaks to the self-employment scheme by the Chancellor this week, but I don't actually think it's going to affect many of us unless we're coming back off of statutory maternity adoption type pay, in which case there is something to do with the grant calculation on that. And if you happen to be reservist in the armed forces, there's something on that, but apart from that, not very much. So I've got a couple of bits and pieces to raise, but I think it's going to be more your questions and answers this week. I think if anybody's got anything, start firing away.
Actually, I've got one at the moment. There was a written question that came in before, so while you're gathering your thoughts, and that is that if somebody was due back from maternity leave, but now finds that the childcare is not available and she has a baby, what are the options? Because there is work for the person, but she's saying she can't come back. She can't be furloughed. What can you do?
You could furlough them, but the problem now is it depends on the date, because the last date for furloughing would have been the 10th of June.
Yeah.
So you'd have to have furloughed the person before the 10th of June. I mean, childcare is still a reason for furloughing, but if the company is basically working for whatever reasons, maybe it's online or something, and they can't work, then, and there is work for them, then you are possibly into a contractual situation.
Yeah, it is a difficult.
Because childminders can now work, nurseries are now starting back to open, so
yeah,
it's a difficult one, that one.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that was one of the written questions. I got a couple more coming in.
That might be a contractual situation rather than furloughing situation, that one.
And Suzanne Proctor said, Jacquie, thanks for the assistance earlier this week.
Oh, hi, Suzanne.
Client did get the furlough. So anyway, you know what that one's about?
Yes, I did. Good. Okay. Right. As I said last week, there were announcements came out. Now, HMRC are now going to issue their updates weekly on the COVID-19 situation. But as per usual, they're going to come out at about 4:45 on a Friday afternoon. And I'm not making any comment about the fact that that's far too late for people to get back to them before Monday morning at all. But so we're not going to get the weekly updates on a Friday afternoon. But if there is anything urgent, we will get them out on social media and up on the COVID-19 hub. Just a reminder before we get going that each week we're making updates to the COVID-19 hub on the website. I've put some more updates there today to keep us up to date this week. If you want to see the latest bits, we've kept the original COVID hub as it was, and then we've got updates going through, and the latest update is in red. And then if that's superseded, then we'll change the colour scheme and put it up there. So if you want to quickly flip through the COVID-19, you can instantly see any changes to that. We're also updating the section on frequently asked questions. Our company that provides our technical support each week sends us an update of the questions. And again, this morning, I've updated the answers to those. So we should be fairly up to date with all of that as of this morning. So any queries, that's the place to go and have a look. Still quite a lot of ambiguity around some of the issues that we've discussed. I've sent an email out to the people on the early years focus group this morning, because the first week we had this, I sent an email to my contact at HMRC. So we're going back about 6 weeks now. I got the answer this morning, and the answer was the link to the information on the HMRC website and absolutely nothing more. So they're really not making individual comments as such. They're just referring you back to, but I've passed that link on to anyone in the early years group that we're already aware. Right, the things that have come out in the last few days, HMRC penalties. HMRC have now confirmed that they, and I'm going to read this out because I wrote this as per thing, they will accept the impact of COVID-19 as a reasonable excuse for the late filing of returns and payments, and the relevant penalties will be cancelled, providing the customer has managed to file and pay as soon as practical. Now that covers the situation that we talked in the very early days about people not being able to get into the offices to get the paperwork or access to the system. So therefore we're missing VAT returns. Now we were quite strict about this and said that the VAT returns needed to be done on time, but rather than the penalties, you can now use the COVID-19 as a possible excuse for not paying the penalty. But of course, as good ICB members, we're all trying our hardest to get everything submitted online anyway. Normally, there is a 30-day window, I think, to appeal against a penalty. That's been extended to 3 months.
Wow.
So again, it gives us a little bit more time. But I would imagine that after the 31st of October, when the COVID-19, when the CJRS and everything closes down, that might possibly stop, but I haven't got an end date for that yet. New flexible calculation tool came out on the HMRC website last Friday. So we're into flexible furloughing from the 1st of July, which is heading in our direction far too quickly. So there is a calculation tool that's been amended now to allow for that. Don't forget now, you can now online put in amendments and make amendments. If you have over claimed on your CJRS scheme, you can now go in and report that online. And the way they're dealing with that is that either you reduce your next claim, or if you're not making another claim, you're going to have to repay that money. But if you have underclaimed, you need to ring the helpline to talk to them about getting the extra funding and the extra grant. They're looking at amending the way or easing the way you claim. If you've got over 100 staff, you have to upload a file. There's some amendments to that. So if anybody's in that situation, then there is some information on the hub about that. I've mentioned the 2 amendments for the SAYS claims. Apparently they've had 2.6 million claims under the self-employment scheme, totaling £7.6 million of claim. For the new second grant, the eligibility will remain the same as before. You will have to reclaim, it's not an automatic claim. Last claims for the first grant is the 13th of July. So if you've missed that deadline, you won't be able to claim the full £7,500. So claims will open for the second grant, I think, on or around the 1st of August. Still some confusion about this declaration that we have to make to say that we have been adversely affected by COVID-19, and what's going to happen if at the end of the year your profits are the same and you haven't actually been adversely affected. And I can't get anything out of HMRC at all on that. Now, we've had a lot of conversations about that. Some suggestions have been, if you do make a claim and you don't actually need to spend the money, put it away in case you have to replace it. That came from someone, which is a good idea. Obviously, if you need the funds, then claim. And we don't yet know what's going to happen, because we talked about this last week or the week before. On the 1st of August, when employers have to start contributing towards their wages. So 1st of August, they've got to pay employers' national insurance and pension contributions. September, they have to pay 10% of the furlough, and October, they have to pay 20% of the furlough. We are going to see, I think, quite a lot of more redundancies and possibly businesses closing down that have been using the furloughing schemes to try to keep them going. Again, on the HMRC meeting yesterday, it was raised, but HMRC aren't commenting, only the fact that, you know, there's been a lot of speculation in the press about the number of people that are going to become unemployed. So for our members and the effect on your businesses, a lot of people still don't know, but think they may be affected over the next couple of months. So again, sorry, we can't give you a hard and fast answer on that. It's down to you to decide what you're going to do. That's all on COVID. Just a quick extra point. This is to do with Brexit, the dreaded Brexit, which is still going around. We now have the dates for import and export declarations. There are 3 dates: January the 21st. We have to start making basic customs declarations if we're importing goods into the country. April the 21st is the deadline for pre-authorization for any animal products and plant products coming into the country. And from July 21, all goods must be declared at the point of import and tariffs must be paid. So something completely aside from COVID-19, but it's to watch these dates. We still don't know what's going to happen about VAT from January. Until we know whether any agreement, an inter-EU agreement is going to happen, we do not know yet what's going to happen about VAT. So we have 2 options. We're either going to stay within the business-to-business system, or we're going to come completely out, in which case everything that we deal with outside us and Northern Ireland is going to be import-export, no business-to-business transactions. And a reminder that the government is asking for anyone who deals with trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, that's either way, that's from Great Britain across to Northern Ireland and back again. I had a look at it online this morning. There is a very simple questionnaire to fill out. They're trying to get people who are involved in that so that they can use you as like a working group, steering group, to try to get some information and see how it's working. And to be honest, that's all I've had this week. So yes, it's been a very quiet week.
Well, we've got quite a few questions here. I see we've got 12. We've dealt with one of them. Put my name forward to the focus group for legal files.
Yeah.
Not heard anything yet.
I'm hoping to have the first. We're just trying to sort out the dates. I think the date for the and Philippa, I think you are on the list. I think the date for the CIS will be next Thursday, and the date for the legal people will be the following Tuesday. But we're hoping to get emails out to you Monday. We've got the people now. We've got the steering group. So either next Thursday or the following Tuesday. So hopefully.
Yeah. Matt says, hi guys, hope you have a good week. Thank you, Matt. It's been a very, very busy week, but I think generally speaking pretty good. We've got a few hair-raising things with some of our members, which I'll talk to you about briefly in a moment. Richard James says, am I correct that someone put back on furlough during June must still be on 3 weeks, even if that takes them into the flexible period?
I think we did say that for them to, they have to be back on by the 10th of June for the first time they're furloughed. But if they've been furloughed, anything up to the end of June has to be a minimum 3-week period. So if you were to furlough them, say on the 20th, I think you're right. I think you've got to go for 3-4 weeks claiming complete furlough before you then put them on flexible working. So the 10th of June was for the final date for the last time they could be furloughed. Nightmare.
Right. We've got one here. Actually, this is an interesting one from Naomi. Actually, I can't quite read the name. I don't know if you can see that.
Naomi, Miriam Griffiths. Hi, Naomi.
Oh, okay. I have a client who's been getting close to the VAT registration threshold, so I'm keeping a close eye on his turnover. My question is, do furlough payments and or either or space grants count towards turnover, or are they other income?
No, I think they come towards other income. They're not trading income, and they're grants, and I don't think that that's going to happen because they're not vatable. So I think that is outside. That's outside the scope.
Didn't we say though originally that limited companies would have to put this in their turnover as an income?
It's in their turnover, but I'm not sure it counts for VAT purposes. Actually, I might need to check that. I've got a feeling it doesn't count towards the VAT threshold.
Right, might be one well to have a quick look at that. Faye says, if there is no work for sole directors, can they stay on full furlough right through until October 20?
They can, but they are going to have to pay the standard percentage. So whatever they pay themselves as their furlough pay, they're going to have to pay national insurance and not pension, because they don't need to pay pension under auto enrolment. And then they've got the 10% in September and the 20% in October. So yes, they can stay on full furlough, but they have got to start making contributions, as has every employer under PAYE.
And Faye also goes on to say, has ICB got redundancy templates? Yes, we have, he says, but if you can't find them on the website, drop us a quick note. But if not, you can always be put through to that lovely lady that came on the other day from Quest, our legal advisors. They do have a lot of templates, but I think they're on there. I'll try and get somebody to tell me that during today. But if not, we'll be back in touch with you. But I think we've got templates for virtually everything. Bev Arnold. Good afternoon,
yeah,
Reflexible Furlough. Just wanted to check that the rules apply to company directors as well as employees. I haven't found anything to make me think that they're excluded, but can you confirm that after 1st of July, a director of a company on the payroll could return part-time?
I think they can. I haven't seen anything to the contrary, and they are on PAYE. So I think the whole idea is that they can come back on a part-time basis. The problem with the sole directors, I think you're going to have, is how much you justify their working. Because if you're if you're employing someone, you can prove that they're coming into the office and their work, or wherever building, a shop or something, that they're actually working those hours, and you've got the record of that. A sole director is going to be difficult, because we've talked about what work can and can't be done, and we've had a situation cropped up this week where with a member who's almost in dispute with a client about whether the director has been working or not. So I mean, the worst thing would be to say, okay, I'm going to come back and I'm going to work 1 day a week, but that means you literally can't work the other 4 days a week. And if you've started working, what happens if you get an email come in about a sale you've made or some work you want to do on a day when you're supposed to be furloughed? So the sole director is going to have to be very, very careful about actually proving what hours they're working. And I think that's going to be difficult. And so I think officially, yes. In practice, might be a problem.
And I think also, I mean, one of the people we've been discussing, one of our members that we've been discussing a similar case with, I said that HMRC are not stupid. If they go and somebody says, well, I haven't been working, they're going to want to look at email records and you know, computer records, and you might think you've cleared it off the system, but if they think you've committed some sort of fraud, they'll damn soon find it.
Yeah.
No, Naomi says there whether the business has been adversely affected by size. I have earned more this year, but still claim because I was adversely affected, having to do a lot more hours, which I wasn't paid for. I will argue my case if necessary. Well, you might well have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of people thought they were going to be adversely affected, and they lost a couple of clients merely to find that they replaced them far more quickly than anticipated. So I would think under those circumstances, you probably have to say, well, it looked bad, but I got around it. I know,
and we've said right from day one with this, with our members who have been working incredibly hard. I mean, one of the biggest problems, particularly if you're dealing with self-assessment, is that as agents, we couldn't do the self-assessment claim. And I was on the part of the tax agent support line, the tax agent support group yesterday. And the other professional bodies were still saying that if you're making a SAYS claim as an individual and you hit one you can't answer, what they're saying is, please go and ask your accountant. Now, that means, and I actually come up with that, if you look through the HMRC guidance, it says, please ask your accountant. Because the problem is, we're doing this for them. HMRC won't allow us to do it. So we're having to spend a lot more time, and all the accountants and bookkeepers are, in actually helping their clients to do this. And there is an increase in cost because of this. I don't know where this one's going to end up, to be perfectly honest, Naomi. But yeah, keep your records, keep your documentation, and argue the case.
And Jude says, actually, this is one for both of us, really, Jackie. Just want to say thank you for your call yesterday, Gary. I found a way of saying I can't do that because these are the rules, and that is why I feel you're not eligible, rather than just saying no. I processed the payroll and furloughs accordingly. What a week. It's now wine o'clock.
Oh, absolutely, Jude. Hi, I'm there with you, my dear. Yes, we've had a few conversations about this one this week. Hannah.
Yeah, sorry if anyone has asked already, but I joined a bit late. I'm trying to double check the transition from furlough to flexible furlough. If a member of staff is taken off furlough this weekend and 2 days, for 2 days, and then put back on again, can they go on to flexible furlough on the 1st of July, or do they still have to complete 3 weeks on full furlough before they're able to go to flexible furlough? Ooh.
It's a difficult one, this one, because the rules apply up to the 30th, that you have to be on furlough for a minimum of 3 weeks or you can't claim. But if you start the 3 weeks now, then you can claim the full furlough and then go flexible. And I think that is how it's going to work. So.
Okay. And Deborah Hinson says, just to say, appealed on behalf of client to HMRC as her employee fell through the cracks. Not an RTI until 31st of March, although start date 20th of February. Didn't hear anything, but tried again on HMRC JRS portal last week. An application accepted and has just received the funds. Very happy to.
That's one that went up to the 3rd tier tribunal almost in week 1 from a member. And Deborah, I don't know if it may have been you that raised this. I don't know, right from the very first. I think it was one of the first queries I had, Deborah, from you. And it had gone to the 3rd tier tribunal. And if they've come back now and they changed that, that's brilliant. So anyone who's listening in, if in doubt, try it again. They'll only turn you down.
Joe Wheeler says, I was advised earlier this month that I would be able to amend earlier furlough claims for an underclaim through the online portal the next time I do a furlough claim.
Yeah, I was told yesterday that you have to phone if it's an underclaim, that the portal is only allowing overclaims. And that's because they'll allow you to pay them less next time, but they don't want you to claim more. And I've got a funny feeling that you're going to actually have to talk to someone and justify as why you've not claimed it in the past, because you're going back and claiming. I think it's because you've already claimed for a period and you can't claim for that period again through the portal. What you do is you can underclaim by writing it off from the previous, but you can't go back and claim more. And I think that's why they're saying you've got to talk to them.
And if someone has been taken off furlough towards the end of June, asks Hannah Crater, and is still working on the 1st of July, are they eligible to then go onto flexible furlough?
Yes, that they can do. If you start the furlough period after the 1st of July and they've been furloughed previously, then that's fine. If they're working, you can then put them on part-time. Because what might have happened is that you've had one person working and everybody else completely furloughed. But from the 1st of July, you can start part furloughing everybody. So that full-timer could go on part-time and the others can come back to work.
And I got a lovely one from Julia Williams on our Facebook group saying, would HMRC and Companies House accept the excuse of the company's bookkeeper having extra work because of dealing with furlough for them and other clients? It's up to you to negotiate, I think, on those things. But if as long as it's not seen to be just an excuse, I think, what do you think, Jackie? You better get away with that.
Is this for late submissions, I assume?
Yeah. Well, you can look fine. The worst they can say is no. But actually, HMRC do seem to be very pleased with us bookkeepers, I have to say. We've got John Scully, the Minister for Small Business, actually coming on live to ICB TV. Not next week after, I think it is, week beginning the 6th. Could be another week further on that. So you'll get chance shortly to send in any written questions, just in case we get too many on the day. So, you know, you can talk direct to the minister. Now, a couple of things I did just want to mention. We just mentioned one of the problems that Jackie and I have actually been working on jointly, and a couple of others that I've had recently, about our members who have been pushed into a corner by their clients saying, well, I'm demanding that you do this. You know, you need to put me on furlough, you need to do whatever, or you need to lie about the state of the business because I want the loan payment. And our members have been checking with us, but basically no, you just don't say yes. So because that is such a big thing for us at the moment, one of the favourite presenters that we had during the virtually inspiring tour was Mark Lee, who talked to you about ethics. And in fact, he is coming on again on Monday. So he's going to be on ICB TV on Monday. He'll be my guest, and we'll be talking all things ethical. So please come, listen, give me your questions. If any of you want to put a question in advance that I can put to Mark, send it in through customer services and they'll get it through to me on the day. Sophie will give me a list, no doubt, but just in case we miss you. But because somebody did say to me the other day, I can't ever watch this live because it's a busy time for me, but I always watch the show later through Facebook or through YouTube. And I know, you know, we've been getting anywhere between 600 and 2,500 people downloading our Facebook onto Facebook later. So the problem is obviously you can't ask a live question. So if you want to get one of your questions answered, please send it in advance. I will acknowledge it with you and we'll ask the question, we'll get it done. So that's Mark Lee, who's coming on Monday. Just had a very strange invite here. You know, everything changes during COVID, obviously, but Della Hudson, I mean, most of you know Della. She's one of those ladies who gets around quite a lot on the social media, and she writes books, etc. She's about to release another book called Growing by Numbers, How to Scale Up Your Small Business with Confidence. It's actually going to be published on the 30th of June, but I've actually been invited to a virtual book opening. So she's going to sign it for me and send it off to me and all the rest of it. So I'm going to join that. Unfortunately, he says I've got to provide my own champagne, but never mind. I can probably arrange that. Any excuse for a bit of bubbly. So what I'm going to try and do, I'll try and get Della to come on to ICB TV sometime just to tell us a bit more about what the book is about. She has a slightly less aggressive way of talking about growing our business than some people we've come across in the past. So I think you might like to listen to what she's got to say. So Della, if you are listening, and you say here that you do listen, so I'm going to check out that is correct. If you'd like to come on sometime next week, can't do Monday, but let me know when you're available. That would be lovely. And if you're really, really good, I'll let you plug the book. So what else have we got on here? Yeah, we have a big month ahead of us in July. We've got a lot of work we've been doing on at the moment on the money laundering software. There are some changes that you wanted us to make, and we're working on those. So they're not going to come out in July yet, I don't think. Some of them will, not all of them. But just something to prompt what's going to come out. Not quite sure in what format yet, but we are being asked to look at the way that we collect the DBS certificates from those of you who are in practice. And we might have collected one from you, but is that enough? And I think of all the DBSs we've collected, we've had only one person that came up with anything on there, and that was a traffic offence, so that didn't matter. But we have found out since our first call for DBSs went out, a couple of members have done something a little bit more, how can I call it, criminal? And that does seriously affect their practice, and we are doing something about that at the moment. So I think the call is going to come for not only everybody to do this more regularly, but we are looking at extending the DBS scheme to all members, not just those in practice, because we've come across a bookkeeper recently, not one of ours, that worked inside a business and was taking a considerable amount of money out of the business. And we were contacted because they thought, as we're the institute, that means we look after all bookkeepers. And thankfully, we look after a lot of them, very large percentage of them, but not this particular gentleman. So we're going to be looking at that as well. I think it's an extra feeling of confidence that we can give to our employers as well as to our clients, and you can obviously then give to your institute, because we like to know that you're legal, decent, honest and truthful. But we'll be talking about that in due course, and I'll update you when we can. One thing that has cropped up this week, which I should just mention, and again, it's about anti-money laundering. We selected one of our members for an inspection because we found that things weren't right. We could tell that without even visiting them. And we asked them to attend a virtual inspection, some of which we are doing at the moment because we can't physically go into your premises and look. And this particular lady refused and said, no, I don't want to be inspected. You're just going to come and find everything wrong with me, so I'm resigning. Unfortunately, if we decide that you are doing something wrong and we start to invoke disciplinary proceedings like that, I'm afraid you can't resign. It's part of the rules. It's one of the rules that's in there. If you'd like to check your PCR, your professional conduct regulations, you cannot resign whilst you are under disciplinary review. So that is there specifically so you don't try and duck your responsibility and get out quick when you know that we found out something that we didn't know and that you didn't want us to know. So it sounds a bit tough, and I always have to try and wear two hats when I'm saying something like this, because I know that it can be a little bit daunting for some of you, but it really isn't if you're doing your job right and you're sticking to the rules. So we do find that some of our members, I think the main thing that you do is you've got so many calls on your time at the moment, you leave everything legal to the back end. And I said recently, it's a bit like the cobbler's wife who has got terrible shoes with holes in. We look after our clients first and our own businesses second, but you've got to take notice of this sort of stuff because there are a lot of checks going on at the moment. And the other thing is that, as I mentioned, when those of you who are tax agents, you are now being checked out with us on an annual basis. So when you come to get your certificate renewed or your ability to be a tax agent renewed, we are being asked. You will in future be asked to provide a copy of your practice license. So in order to make that more accessible to you, we are looking at making that an electronic version so that you can just pass that on then. But they are, I don't know whether it's randomly or whether they've got some suspicions or what, but we're getting a couple of these a day at the moment. HMRC ringing up, and we have a password to know so that we know it is HMRC that's ringing, and they have a special way of asking, a bit like the Masons funny handshake. But then we are able to say, yes, this is a member of good standing, and therefore there shouldn't be any problem. Anybody does ever have any problem, let us know. But I think if there is a problem, HMRC will probably tell us immediately anyway. So I see we've got another couple of questions coming there, Jacquie.
Some anonymous. Hi, anonymous. Is it possible that HMRC can be contacted regarding an employee who had been furloughed from the 30th of March and left at the end of May, 2 weeks after making the claim and 1 week before making the next claim? Not quite sure about the claim and who's making the claim, but I would say if you've got a query on that, so that they left, so presumably that might mean that they've actually claimed for a final week's furlough in advance and the person's left before. If that is the query, then I would say that is one of the reasons for overclaiming, and you would reduce that in your next claim. So if there is a week where you've already claimed in advance for someone and they've already left, you just don't claim that amount in your next one. But if in doubt, ring the helpline and they'll be able to answer that one. But hopefully that's what that one's about. And Karen.
Just if I can say, Jacquie, if you believe that there is something that is going on which is potentially fraudulent, get in touch, because there is a special email address for people who want to report any fraudulent activity. It's not a SAR, it's not a suspicious activity report, because it's not technically money laundering yet, because you don't know whether they've spent it or not. But there is a fraud line, and it's a very strange email address, and we can send it to you if you haven't already come across it.
Is that the one? Is that the sort of the whistleblowers?
Yeah, report an unlicensed trader, something or other. Yeah, it's very weird, but when you open it up, actually, it makes a lot more sense than it sounds as if it's going to.
Yeah. Hopefully that one, I don't think that's fraudulent. I think that's a claim in advance that's been made where maybe somebody's resigned, but I think it's just that's just an overclaim, and you reduce your next claim accordingly. And Karen said, I have a client who has 2 directors, both furloughed. There have been deposits in the bank suggesting that they are trying to get sales for the future. They are a travel company. Is this allowed on furlough? They're not actually making trips at the moment for looking for future work. No, it isn't allowed. If they are doing anything, the only thing that a director can do on furlough is the legal side of keeping the business going. So we've yes, they can run payroll if they have to, if that's their job. They can do legal returns to Companies House and everything like that, but they cannot do anything which is any way to do with trading. So taking deposits means that the business is working. So therefore, I think that falls outside the furlough. I don't know whether you want to comment on that one, Gary?
Well, I think it does. And I mean, that's one of the bits of advice we've given this week to somebody. You know, I mean, you can't sit and do your job, albeit you're doing it slightly differently. But if money's coming in and you're billing people or anything like that, that is working. I mean, if you're going in to do the payroll, as Jackie says, then that's fine. Or if you're going in to make sure that the heating hasn't blown up, or that nobody's stolen the toilet seat or something like that, all that sort of thing, I think you can do, because that's a necessity just to make sure the business is running. But if you're saying there's no income coming in and therefore you need the government to pay, or us taxpayers to pay your furlough, it's got to be true. And I think you have to be very careful that we don't slip up and do this.
I mean, the fact that you've got income coming in, unless you can prove that it's income from a previous invoice that's gone out prior to COVID, and actually, it's being paid.
Anonymous has come back on actually to explain. I understand it. I don't know if you do.
Claim for the 2 weeks has not been made. A SAFE did not allow this due to the employee being leaver at the date of the claim. Hope this makes sense. Could I ask you to send that in to Member Services via an email marked for my attention, and I'll deal with that by email early next week. I'll get that sent to me. I'll chase that up. I think it might be easier to, as it's quite specific. I think I need to try and get my head around that. And if you let me know who you are, I'll give you a call. And so if you want to bump an email across, I'll give you a call, maybe hopefully Monday, and we can get that sorted out if that's okay.
Aaron says, I do payroll. They have been on furlough since day one. And then thank you for your answer. Yeah, I hope that's been good.
I think if money has come into the bank and you can prove that it's money for invoices that have gone out for work done prior to the shutdown, then I think that's absolutely fine. Yeah. Because that's for work previously done. But if it's work coming in for deposits and anything else, you'd have to prove that was no work had been done on that since the start of shutdown. So not an easy one, that one. I tell you one thing, we thought the questions in weeks 1 to 3 were difficult. They're getting really, really specific now.
Yeah, and I think it's you know, we had one of our members on yesterday, and she was just saying that things were going really, really well. Her husband had been furloughed. The kids were at home. He was looking after them. Now they're out of lockdown. He's gone back to work. So suddenly she's now at home, but with the kids and running the bookkeeping business. So some people that had that right at the very beginning are now getting that now because their other halves have got a slightly different working. And so I think each section of this is going to bring its own unique problems. But, you know, I mean, they've announced another £1 billion or something or other coming out of government today for children, isn't it? To get them back up to scratch on the education that they missed and everything else. The more times you say billion, the less it sounds, I suppose, really. But it's still a lot of money by anybody's count. You know?
Yes, I must admit, I think any parent who's been trying to work from home and homeschool and babysit and everything else, you know, we are super people. Fortunately, I don't have to do that anymore, but I would not like to be in that situation with small children at this time. Jude's come back. This is Jude, if you remember, is the lady we were talking to about the problem with the client who insisted that he or she wasn't working. Jude's come back and said, the statement I used, this is the statement I used, activities that would be considered as work and therefore restricted whilst on furlough include talking to customers, talking to suppliers, marketing your business to keep your business going, posting on social media, taking work calls. Absolutely correct, Jude. Well done. Okay.
You were talking before about your panels, Jacquie, and I know people are looking at that with interest. We are putting together a panel for those of you who are listening. If any of you have got any form of either legal background or interest in legal things and equality and being careful, etc., etc., we are putting together a panel of people who will be who will provide independent oversight on our disciplinary fining regime for misdemeanors of various sorts. It's very difficult for us to judge the members as all the same, because they're not. We've got some of our practice members who have got 50 employees. We've got others that have just started off and they've got their first client. So obviously there is a huge difference between the top and the bottom of that. So when it comes to people that are doing things wrong, we have to make a considered judgment as to whether or not we find somebody with one client more or less than somebody with 50. And what ability did they have to do this properly, and were they given proper instructions, etc. And we are putting together, it is a very small panel, it will include a couple of lay people or lay persons. And if anybody would like to do that for us, would like to come on, if you could get in touch with me through customer service again. I'm hoping it doesn't meet very often, but we, it would be very useful if we could have an impartial view, but from somebody who's also doing the job. So we've got some non-bookkeepers on the panel. It's only going to be a small panel, but non-bookkeepers on the panel, some people with some legal background. If we could have one or two bookkeepers, probably mid-range side business, somebody that's interested in that sort of thing. You have to be particularly interested in fairness and what that means. But yeah, if anybody is interested, please let me know. If you all come forward and want to be on this panel, I'm afraid we can't take all of you, so I'm not sure how we're going to select you yet, but let's see what happens when they come from that. So that's just another panel. We're going to have a lot of panels by the end of the year, Jacquie, I think, but we've always involved the members, but these panels, we tend to get off and everybody goes up at them with a gusto, and then you realise that the number of meetings has dwindled slightly, and the next thing you know, half the people are so busy they can't attend, and they sort of disappear a little bit. I'm just wondering what your necklace, it's almost sort of reptilian, isn't it?
Yes.
I don't know what it looks like from there, but it's got those lovely snake markings.
Yes,
on
it
there,
is. It's one that I sort of developed as I was making it, and it was supposed to go to match the earrings, but I couldn't get the pattern exactly the same. So yes, it has ended up looking a bit reptilian.
Okay, right. Well, I think actually, I think that was the last of the questions, wasn't it?
That's the last one.
Let me just check, because
the only thing, just to go back on your thing about panels, is the panels that I'm setting up, I'm hoping will be short and sweet over a period of time to get things going and advise us on what we're going to do. And some of them are definitely COVID-19 related, so once this is over, they will stop, but not too many meetings and short and sweet.
Have you seen the statement there from Jude at the end? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I read that out. That's fine.
Right, yeah, okay. Well, I think we're done on that. Well, it's quarter to the hour, Jacquie. I think we seem to have done a bit. Have you got anything else coming up next week that you know?
No, we're starting, as I say, I want to start these 2 focus groups up. We were hoping to do them Tuesday and Thursday, but by the time we've got everybody geared up to do that, I think Monday's going to be too short notice to get the ideas out. So I'll have them for next Thursday and the following Tuesday. Anybody listening in on the early years group, I've sent an email out to you all this morning, seeing if you want another meeting to talk about flexible furloughing, because if you think you've got a problem with flexible furloughing with your businesses, you've got nothing unless you're in early years nursery care, because they get part funding anyway, so they've got an additional complexity to their calculations. So yeah, we're going to try and thrash that out as a group together. No, I think that's all I've got. So unless we have any other questions, Hannah said, thank you both of you. Have a lovely weekend. You too.
Can I just mention one thing? We had Julia Wedgwood on yesterday, our companion from and Luca winner from Sage, and she was just saying that they're about to do some webinars on the changes to the CIS scheme. Now you've normally got that covered. This is not the VAT. This is the
no. This is the tax. There will be some training coming out. We hope we're going to be doing some training for anybody who's involved in the CIS scheme. Basically, what happens at the moment is everybody charges VAT all the way up the line in the supply chain. But because there have been, as unfortunately there often is, certain groups of businesses who deal mainly in gang providing labour, so through a gang of labourers, who have been defrauding HMRC through the VAT. So what they've done is they've decided to change the whole VAT system in the construction industry to become a domestic reverse charge. Now, it's the first time that we've really had anything this big happen in the UK to bring in domestic reverse charges. So I'm discussing it with the focus group next week. It has just been put off again. It was due to come into force on the 1st of October 2019. It was put off until the 1st of October 2020, and it's been put off again recently to the 1st of March 2021. So we do have a bit of breathing space, but there are going to be some issues when it comes in. So we're hoping to have meetings with you, hopefully do some webinars. We'll put some training material up. There is an article on the website. I think I wrote it in September 2019, I think I wrote it in my technical updates. It's in resources on the website if you're interested. But yeah, that's going to be some big changes when it comes in.
And the only other thing I was going to mention, I know it's not technically your area anymore, as you doctor, but the self-assessment tax return exams that we're doing. I remember having conversations with you about the dreaded capital gains tax and how, you know, that's a difficult subject. I notice it's now been brought in to our new examination, and we've moved it up to level 4 because of this. And Esther the other day, who's our wonderful tutor from, she's an ideal schools tutor, isn't she? But she also looks at a couple of the forums, and she was saying that she's now got somebody that's been through their course, ideal schools course. But it really does make people think, and she's been really pleased with the way people have had to put a lot of concentration into this one.
Well, the idea was that, as with everything we give our members, the minute we give you something, you want more, and that's absolutely brilliant. But we did say that we wouldn't, on the old level 3 SAT, we wouldn't allow you to do capital gains tax, and we wouldn't allow you to do foreign income. And because your businesses and your clients are getting so much more complex, when we moved this from level 3 up to level 4 to be part of the fellowship qualification, we decided to bring this in so that our members can do all forms of self-assessment tax returns, except for those of trustees. And there is no way we should be touching trustee self-assessments with a barge pole. And everybody I've spoken to that knows about it agrees with it. Very complex, a lot of legal issues with trusts. So yeah, a capital gains tax, but it's not easy. Many years ago when I was in practice, the first one I did, I have to say, didn't do as well as I would have liked to have done on it. So we had to go back and redo it.
So is this because then more people are doing capital gains? Because I had a look, there's only about 113,000 people a year claim any sort of capital gains tax figures.
I think the capital gains tax really can't, I mean, yes, it's limited as to what you may or may not have to pay. But it's due on things like second properties. If you sell a second property or you sell assets apart from a car and your principal primary residence. And there are quite a lot of important things that you have to deal with. And I certainly had several clients when I was practicing that sold things that could have been due for capital gains, and you know it's useful. But as I'd say again, you might get something fairly simple that you can do, but you might get something incredibly complex. And even though you're qualified to do it because you've got the exam, you may decide not to do it because of its very nature.
We had an inquiry recently, and I mean, it's typical, like you just said. As soon as we give our members the chance to do A to X, they want to do X to Z as well. And one of our members said, "Why is the institute not applying to become an auditing body?" Oh. I said, "We do not want to do audit. Thank you very much indeed. You know, if you can pick your friends and influence as you wish, but we do not want to do audit."
I mean, we do allow members to do independent observations of non-profit making, the finance side of it, but certainly not auditing. I studied auditing when I was lecturing. I was doing some advanced accountancy studies, and I studied auditing. And I have to say, I did not take the exam. I took one look at it and thought, nah, not for me. And if you read in the press, if the big boys are getting it vastly wrong at the moment, and also the level of turnover at which you need to have an audit is very, very high, and it really should be done by larger accountancy bodies and larger accountancy firms.
And I noticed last night in the press that some card payment scheme in America, the auditor has just realised there's $1.9 billion missing out of the account somewhere. You know, how do you mislay $1.9 billion? Anyway,
just unbelievable.
Great. Anyway, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jacquie. Another great day, I think, and let you get off a bit earlier so you can have your wine o'clock or whatever it is, your tipple at the moment. And yeah, we look forward to seeing everybody next week. Don't forget, on Monday we've got Mark Lee coming on. That's to talk about ethics. Even if you don't think you've got problems with your clients, it's worth knowing a bit about ethics and some of the things that comes up. Just make sure some of the decisions you're making aren't something to do with ethics, because you know these things don't crop up very often. But Naomi is just saying thanks all. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, all of you have a great weekend. It doesn't look like the weather's going to be wonderful, but.
Yeah, no. The only thing I would say is, Anonymous, again about your query, if you actually want to ring the Institute's offices on Monday and ask to speak to me, that's probably going to be the quickest way to get in touch with me. I'm around, I'm working in the office on Monday. Yeah, have a lovely weekend, everyone.
Okay,
Thanks
bye.
for tuning in. Bye.